Hi, I'm Suzie Koch, and I'm a physical therapist at European Therapy Centers in Northfield. We also have an office in Palatine. And welcome to our webinar for strategies on efficient sitting. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey with sitting, especially in the last year or so with much more screen time than ever before. I find myself sitting in all sorts of wacky ways on my chair. I'll show you a few of them that are kind of fun. I might cross my leg over and sit on one side, kind of side sit this way. Or maybe I'll put both legs up like this and sit in a pretzel and start looking at my screen. Sometimes I just get on the floor and I start putting my hands on the chair and look at the screen this way. I've come up with all sorts of wacky ways, and I'm sure you have too. And let's face it, sitting is difficult, and I want to give you some strategies today to make it better for your back and make it better for your neck and to prevent injuries down the road. So my goals today for this presentation are to explain to you how we sit matters, and also how to do it, strategies for how to make it work for you in all sorts of situations. So just to let you know, this webinar is just intended to give you some beginning tips on how to do this. If you need further treatment or if you need further guidance on how to make this work for you, we are open at European Therapy Centers in Northfield and Palatine. We're following the CDC guidelines. We have private rooms. You get one-on-one an hour treatment. And if you'd rather come in or not come into our office, you can do telehealth with you as well. So without further ado, let me ask you all a question. How many hours do you think you sit in a day? I mean, we have all these fancy watches that tell us how many steps we're taking, what our heart rate is, how many hours we're sleeping, but I think they should measure how long we sit too. And if you really add it up, it's a lot. And sitting is right up there with obesity and smoking for risk factors and for early death, and that's not good. But the good news is that if you sit for less than a half an hour at a time, you can reverse all of these risk factors. And that's an easy thing to do if you set a timer. So, all right, so let me talk to you a little bit about why it really matters how we sit. I'm going to show you a spine. So this is our skeleton. So if I put him here, this is me, this is your back, and then this is the pelvis. So if I sit sideways, I'm going to show you a few ways that our spine can end up when we're sitting. Because the way we sit, we tend to sit on these two bottom points here. They're called your sit bones. What happens is it's kind of a wobbly situation. And so you'll end up trying to balance yourself by sort of slumping. And that's what I'm doing here. And so your question is, why is slumping so bad? Well, over time, this puts a lot of pressure on your discs. These are the shock absorbers that run between your spine, and they can get compressed and they can get inflamed. They can even bulge out and irritate nerves and cause pain down your leg. So over time, this isn't a good place to be for your back. So then sometimes in order to not slump, we'll say, okay, I'm just going to sit up tall. Well, I can do that too, but the problem is it's still a wobbly situation, and I'm going to compress and irritate the vertebrae that run along the spine. These joints that run along your spine are not intended to be weight bearing. They're supposed to just guide your side bending and your rotation. They're not supposed to load for you. So what happens is all the muscles that run along your back get really tight, they get really fatigued, get really tired and sore. And it becomes a holding pattern or a habit pattern that, yeah, I'm sitting up tall, but it's putting a lot of compression into the back here. So either way isn't good. So how do we sit then without straining our back? We have to train you in one way of sitting, which is called active sitting. And active sitting is where we sit on what's called a base of support. We don't have the back of the support of our chair here at this point. But instead of using the back of the chair, you're going to find a solid platform. So let me show you what that looks like with a tripod. So if you are all familiar with the tripod, if you have a tripod and it's only on the back two legs, it's going to tip, right? And so that's what happened with our spine. So when it was on these sit bones, I either slumped or I arched to try to balance myself, but I'm not really stable. A stable base is when you've got 3 points, and this can't move, and it's much more stable. So with the active sitting, I'm going to show you how to find that stable base of support. And so base of support is also a springboard for other activities that we do, including standing and walking and bending and lifting. So not only is it better for your back to sit on your base of support, but it's also a training mechanism to get you more efficient with other more advanced activities. So those are why. That's why we care about this. So when we look at how to find our base of support, we first have to find a chair that's the right height. So I have a stool here that can get adjusted up and down. I'm going to show you what happens when I put the chair too low. So I'm going to go way down here. What happens here is I'm on my sit bones, I'm back here, but I tend to just kind of round and slump back. I can't get forward onto my base of support or my tripod. It's just inevitable that I'm going to slump back here. So your chair can't be too low. The other problem is if your chair is too high. So this would be like on a bar stool, or just a chair that is too high for you, or you're too short. And so what happens here is you tend to arch your back, and I'm still not balanced on my tripod. I'm on the 2 points, and then I'm loading those joints in the back, and that's a problem too. So instead, you want to get a chair height that is about 100 to a 90-degree angle between your thigh and your torso. So this is going to allow me to find this tripod or this base of support that is between my sit bones and my 2 legs here. So if you look here, or if you feel on yourself, if you put your hands underneath your tush and you sit back, you can feel those sit bones. Now, if you shift your weight forward off of them a little bit and put your hands on your thighs, this is your base of support. So I'm no longer sitting just on those sit bones. I have my weight forward. So I'm also sitting on the front of the pelvis and my 2 thighs here. I've created a tripod for myself. So the easy way to create your own tripod is find your chair height, get yourself in a comfortable place where you are on your sit bones, and then you're just going to shift your weight forward a little bit, put your hands on your thighs. You can push through your legs so you can actually feel there's some weight in your legs. So now I'm off of those sit bones, and I've got my weight more into my 2 thighs and an area where you would sit, say, on a bicycle seat. And if I put some weight through my hands, I can feel that my legs are heavy on the ground. If someone were to come over to you, they shouldn't be able to lift your legs up. So if I'm back here, someone could lift my legs up really easily. But if I'm tipped forward a little bit and I've got my weight in my feet and I'm on my pelvic floor or my bicycle seat, my tripod, my legs are much heavier here. And the weight goes into the ground instead of my back. And so the beauty of this is, like I said, a springboard for other motions. I can start to shift my weight through my hips here a little bit, and that's going to be much safer on my back than shifting if I were from back here on my sit bones. Look at my back when I try to shift my weight forward here. It just stays rounded, and I bend and irritate more at my back. But if I get forward on my pelvic floor, I can shift my weight and come forward here. Let me show you with a dowel what that looks like. So this is just another part of the why we even bother to sit on our pelvic floor. If I come forward here, my back stays straight. All of the motion is happening at my hip. The hip is a nice big ball and socket joint. That's where you want the load to go from. If I were to round my back and I put that stick there, do you see how as I go forward, the stick doesn't stay with me? All the pressure is going in my back. There's very little motion happening at my hip. But if I put myself on my pelvic floor and I come forward, now my back stays straight, my head and neck stays out of the picture, and it's all getting loaded into my legs. So this is where your active sitting is when you eat, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can use this as your momentum to move forward here from your hip joint. So the other part of sitting on your base of support, so now you've found that platform or that tripod, is your alignment. So let me show you with a soda can how we can imagine our alignment. So alignment is your posture, really. It's how you are structured, you know, from the head down to the toes. Where are you? Are you slumped? Are you arched? Are you side bent or rotated? If we look at a soda can that is full, the top is on, bottom is intact, this can is pressurized. So this is how we should be in our torso. When a can is pressurized, you can't crush it. So I can put my foot on here, it's not going anywhere. You can think of this as your torso. So you got from your neck down, you got what's called your glottis, which is where it closes the airway off up here. That can create a pressure system between here and your diaphragm. So when that's lined up, you can create pressure here. And the rib cage, which is this part here, sits over your belly and over the diaphragm, and so there's pressure created. And then the bottom part is what we're sitting on, our base of support, or your pelvic floor muscles. They push from the bottom up, and then the diaphragm can push from the bottom top down. And so now you have an intra-abdominal pressure that is established because my alignment is good. If I were to take my alignment out of neutral, let's say I kind of let myself round back here a little bit, now I can't stack my rib cage over my abdomen. My can is easily crushed. Same thing with my head and neck. I've come forward, so now I've lost that pressure system here. If someone were to push through my shoulders, I would bend. So let me show you with the can. This can is open through the top. If I go to crush it, boom. So that's a very dramatic way of what could happen. But slowly over time, those pressure points aren't present and your spine can't withstand those forces. You get irritation and pain and strain. So you want to make yourself into a soda can. Let me show you another example of this. So we have some boxes here. So if you think of your torso as a stack of blocks. So let's say we split it up into 3 blocks. I've got my rib cage here as 1 block. And then I've got my midsection as another block. And then I've got my pelvis as the 3rd block. We want all of these blocks to be stacked together so that they are in one straight line. So when I'm sitting and I'm on my pelvic floor on my base of support and my tripod, my rib cage block is sitting over my abdomen block, it's over my pelvis block. If someone were to push through my shoulders right now, everything would go into the pelvis and into the ground. So these boxes, I go to push on them, they're pretty stable. If I were to move one box back a little bit, and maybe another one off to the side a little bit, so that would be, say, me kind of slumping a little bit and side bending a little bit. If I'm going to push on these boxes, off they go. They're not stable anymore. So just another way to think of that alignment. I'll show you a 3rd example with a foam noodle. So you could also look here at this as our alignment. So this could be my spine. If my alignment is straight, like it is now, I can push through this thing and it's not going to bend. The forces can go right into the ground. But if I arch my back like this, so this would be like that foam arched here, I go to push through this, what happens? It bends. And that's what creates pressure and pain in your back over time. We want your alignment straight so the forces can go right into the ground. So just to give you some visuals on that. So we figured out our soda can. We figured out our tripod. Now we've got a head and neck and shoulders to deal with to help improve your alignment. So the head and neck tends to do a few different things. It tends to turtle forward, especially if you start to go into that rounded sitting position. So turtling kind of looks like this. You can see that the chin comes forward. Sometimes you're trying to see the screen. Maybe you have bifocals and you can't quite see what you're trying to see. This is so common. Our head goes forward. So to come out of this, you're going to take your fingers, just your two fingers. You're gonna put them underneath your chin and just feel what it feels like when your head's forward. There's no weight under my fingers right now. It's kind of light. Now, if I go and put my head neutral, which is where my head is lengthened through the back and my chin drops down, kind of like I'm nodding yes, I can feel the weight of my head into my fingers now. It's heavy. So I've got that position of my head out of the turtle and more in a neutral position. So do that a few times so you can kind of feel here, I'm in a forward head, there's no weight. Here, I can feel the weight of my head under my fingers. It's as if someone were lengthening the back or the crown of your head and just you slightly nodding your chin down. Something to note, if your computer, it should be fairly much in front of you. If you've got it way off to one side and you're constantly having to turn your head one way, that's going to create a rotation all day long on your neck, and that's not good. So you want to have it just maybe off to the side a little bit, but no more that you can't just use your eyes to look at your screen. The other thing that sometimes happens is you're having a conversation with someone and they're right off to the side of you at the dinner table. So instead of always turning your head, just turn your chair to face them and talk with them straight on while you can sit into this base of support. So that's your head and neck alignment. Now we've got our shoulders. We've got our two shoulders and our shoulder blades that sit along the back here. We can position these throughout the day to help put them in a better place so there's less stress on your neck. So real easy, while you're in your tripod position, so I've got base support, I'm forward a little bit, weights in my legs, I'm gonna have my arms hanging down by my side. You're gonna shrug your shoulders about halfway up. Keep them up there. You're gonna turn your entire arm forward, all the way from the top to the bottom, so your pinkies face forward. And then you're gonna let your arms reach down toward the floor, and then you can bring your forearms back to neutral. So what that does is it takes our shoulder blades or our scapula and puts them right where they should be on the back of the rib cage, so you're not in this rolled forward position. We don't need to be squeezed together either. We want it right in between. So just to practice that again, have your arms hanging down by your side. You're going to shrug your shoulders about halfway up. You're going to turn your entire arm so your pinkies face forward, and then you're going to reach your arms down toward the floor. And then you can bring your forearms back. So that is setting your shoulders. So from alignment with this active sitting, this is when we're sitting without the back of the chair. I also want to talk about what happens when you want to relax and you want to sit in a lounge chair, or you want to just use the back of the chair. Let me show you what happens typically. This is me when I get home from work. I just want to plop in my chair or my couch, and I want to just chill out, and I want to watch Netflix and just, zone out and eat my popcorn and be super happy. From what I've just told you, you probably could see that this probably isn't a good place to be. However, I can make this chair work much better for me in this reclined position. So I'm going to have a couple pillows. All right, so pillows can make a chair work for you. So this chair is pretty deep. You can kind of see it here. I'm not that long, so I need to have a pillow back here to take in that space. And then also, we're going to take a couple supports underneath the feet. All right, so let me show you here. So when I sit in the chair now, I've got this support back here. Watch what I'm doing here. I'm actually shifting my weight all the way back into that chair. So I'm not skipping that part of my back. I'm getting my tush all the way back, and I'm leaning back and using the back of that chair. So that's step one. So I've filled in the back. I've made it no longer a concave surface. It's filling in there. Now I've got arms and legs. We don't have to worry about the pelvic floor anymore or sitting on that tripod because we have a back support. However, our legs and arms are heavy. I have nothing, I'm not putting weight on them anymore. So what you can do is, I want you to feel the difference between this. If you have a couple paper reams or a pillow, that would work. I just happen to have these two half foam rollers. If you put them underneath your feet, and then go back into your sitting position, just take a moment and feel what it feels like to have support underneath your feet when you're sitting. It's not a very high height. I'm talking, maybe 8 inches or so. Now take them away and let your legs kind of hang for a minute. And then you're going to put it back in and feel the difference. This is how we can get a sense of awareness of what feels better to us and what does not feel better. So in general, unloading your legs is really important when you're sitting in a reclined state so that you have your back support, but your legs are heavy. They need support. My arms, they're heavy too. They can pull on the neck. So feel what it feels like without any arm rests underneath you. These arm rests are awfully wide, so I have something better, a cheap pillow. So you're gonna take your pillow, put it underneath your elbows and underneath your armpits a little bit, and feel what that feels like. And I tell you right now, I'm much more comfortable than I was without that. I feel like, oh, what do I do with my arms? A lot of times people cross their arms because that's the way to take the weight of your arms off your neck and back. So if you don't have a pillow, cross your arms. However, I do. And then let me show you something else. When you're sitting, you're looking at something. I've got my phone here. Do you see how that pillow brings the phone right up to where my eyes can look at it? That's helpful because if I don't have that, I'm going to be doing this. And I see this in the waiting room all the time, thinking, I need to work on your neck, but I need to train you how to do this so you don't keep stiffening your neck up again. So get that pillow underneath there. If you need to, you need to, but this is going to allow for you to look at something with your eyes at that diagonal where you're not looking down. Your head is still in that nice neutral position. Now, because I'm sitting, I've got my back supported, my shoulders are in a pretty good place. My head could turtle. I could look forward. So having that support underneath your arms to look at something straight on is crucial for, as my boys call it, text neck. That's our new term. Don't do text neck. All right, so another place that we might do recline sitting is in front of a computer. So let me show you with a different chair. So this is a squishy surface. If you're going to be sitting in front of your computer, you want to have a bit more of a firm surface underneath you. So I have this chair here. This one is more solid, and it happens to have some nice armrests, and it does have a little bit of a hollowed out back. So I'm going to bring it over by my computer here to show you how I can make this chair work. So a lot of this at home for you is going to be problem solving and figuring out what works best with your furniture. So if I sit in this chair, let me show you what happens here. When I sit in it with nothing at all, and I do try to sit back into the chair, I'm actually too low for where my computer is right now, because when I bring my arms up, it's like I'm having to reach up to get to my computer screen. So instead, I can make this chair a little taller for me by putting some towels underneath. So I have just plain old bath towels folded up. I'm going to stick them right underneath there. I'm going to take this pillow and put it along the back because I want to fill in that hollow part. And the last part are the supports for your feet. So we have these guys. So now I can get myself pulled in. I'm a little bit higher now, so that actually feels better. I'm close in now. My feet are hanging, so I'm going to put these foam pieces right underneath there. So I've got something to put them on. That unloads my legs, feels much better. I'm scooted all the way back into my chair, my armrest. And then I'm kind of far from my computer here, so bring that in closer and bring yourself in as close as you can. Now the last part here is look at my arms. They're still hanging, so I'm going to get a pillow underneath my arms to support the weight of them off of my neck. And I've had people tell me, oh my God, I'm not going to sit at work with all this. Well, who cares? You're not working in an office right now. I'm just kidding. But eventually, I mean, it doesn't really matter. If you're comfortable and you're saving your back, that's what's important. It's not what you look like at work. And having a support underneath your arms while you're at your desk is going to save your neck in the long run and your low back. So this is pretty good. Do you see how this top of the monitor, it's lower in the screen, but the way my eyes are looking, I'm looking down with my eyes. I'm not looking down with my neck to see the computer. So if you have a computer where you can separate the monitor, it would be better if the monitor was at about eye level. This is a laptop, so I can't do that, but I do have my arms around a 90-degree angle and my forearms are resting with support underneath the pillow. So I could be here for a while typing and working on this computer. And like I said, that monitor, you don't want it off to the side because then all day long you're going to be twisting at your back. That's not good. Have it as close to in front of you as you can. And so that's your workspace. So you'll have to troubleshoot at home a little bit and see what works for you. I'm going to take myself away from here. Okay, so if you're other options, I mean, we can get into, you know, if you're on your desk or you're at home and you're lounging on your couch, you can lay on your side on the couch instead of just sitting up. That's actually better than just going into that slumped position if you want to switch from just being in a sitting position. Sideline is a really nice way to unload the back. And the next Zoom, we're going to start talking about how you can position yourself in your sleep to take pressure off of your back, because sleep time is often a time where things get out of sorts and we don't even realize it till the next morning, and we've got a crick in our neck or we've got a sore back. And so that will be one of the webinars coming up where I can give you some advice on that. So to recap here, we talked about two different types of sitting. Talked about active sitting, which if you're not using the back of a chair, I've got a stool here. Active sitting is when you're eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or you're in a conversation with someone. You want to be able to have a place to put your legs and a place to get the weight into that tripod position. So remember that tripod is the front ends of those sit bones, and it's your thighs and where you would sit on a bicycle seat. It's not back here on your sit bones. So you're going to be shifted forward a little bit. It's going to allow for you to put some weight into your legs. And to help you find it, you're just going to put your hands on your thighs and just kind of relax into that. That's active sitting without a back support. And then we have the recline sitting, which is where you're using your chair, the back on it, and you've got your supports in place. And you want to have pillows around your house so that you can support your back, fill in that space. And then I've got the pillow underneath the arms. And then I need to have a couple of supports underneath the feet. So there we are. And that's your recline sitting. Because you could do this in your lounge chair by filling in the chair with pillows. And you can also do it in front of your computer as long as you bring your computer close to you. So your homework or some things to practice are every time, nothing really becomes normal or average to you until you practice it. For example, if you take your hands and you put your thumbs together, and you have one way that your thumb will always naturally go. But if you go and flip it back and forth a bunch of times, eventually you won't remember which way was the normal way for you. And this goes with sitting too. This is going to feel really weird at first. You're going to be like, wait a minute, this is how you want me to sit? But you do it enough. You start implementing it in your day, even if it's just for part of your day you sit like this and part of your day you sit with active sitting. That will become more normal to you and will feel better and more efficient. So if you feel like some of this was a little confusing or help, I mean, sometimes our brain just can't register where to go on that pelvic floor. And that's where we can get our hands on you and do physical therapy training to help you find your alignment, your basic support, and take you further into grand detail of the weight shifting and the weight acceptance part of this active sitting seminar. And we're happy to have you come in, and you can come in to see us personally for a one-on-one session or again as telehealth. Now, if you have any other questions, you can email us at info@enjoythechange.com, or you can call us at 847-221-2222. It looks like we do have a question. So let me see. Oh, okay. So the question was to sit for 30 minutes, but then take a break. How long should the break be? I think that as long as you take a break for 2 to 3 minutes to get yourself out of that position, that's plenty. You just don't want to be there in that sitting. I mean, I had someone tell me they were sitting until 2 in the morning. If you're in that place for too long, that's a long time to be loading your spine, even if you are sitting correctly. So getting up and take a 2 to 3 minute break, and that'll be another webinar that I would like to get into. There's some great stretches that you can do that don't take long and they're easy to do at your office or at home. And we can get into some activities for that in a future webinar. So at the end here, there is a survey. So if you could complete it and let us know of any future webinars that you would want me to talk about, and any other ways that we can make this learning environment better for you, we'd appreciate that information. So, all right, well, thanks everybody. Have a good day and enjoy the sunshine out there.